With Ben McKee, Brent Hubbs, VolQuest.com, continuing our positional previews, taking a look at special teams today, and Ben, big loss in special teams participation. Now, they're bringing kickers back, which is good. We'll get to that in a minute. But the big loss is in the return game with Velus Jones, who's off to the Chicago Bears. Big shoes to fill there from Mike Ekeler.
Absolutely. You could trust him back there to simply catch the ball, and then he was dynamic with the ball in his hands. So certainly a big loss there. I'm fascinated to see who they tried out there this fall. They have a slew of options. You and I were talking before we press record, and there are so many names that we mentioned. Obviously, the ones that first come to mind are a guy like Jimmy Holiday. Ramel Keaton's been thrown back there. I think they just kind of trust him to catch the ball. And look, that's more important than anything else a punt returner does. I know everybody thinks about the long Devin Hester type returns, but they preach to catch the ball first and then try to get a first down. So Ramel Keaton's a guy they trust back there, and I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of other names they try out there back there in the fall.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fascinating August in terms of tryouts there. I mean, is it Holiday? Is it Callaway? Is there a freshman that can get involved there? Does a Christian Charles, who's a former high school quarterback, does he get involved in the punt return game? And then the same could be said for kickoffs. You know, now you can fair catch every kickoff and start as a 25, which is what they may end up doing, but can they find a dynamic guy? And again, it's back to who they trust. You know, Squirrel White's, you know, a joy, you know, he's kind of that pogo stick, or Nevin McKenzie, you know, type deal at Georgia. Do they trust him back there? Is he big enough to handle that back there? We'll see. I think that's going to be a real fascinating part of special teams and a huge unknown. Then on the flip side, there's a bunch of knowns about this team on special teams.
Absolutely. And real quick, Deshaun Rucker, maybe another guy.
Yeah, it's a good one.
He's a burner. Who could absolutely run. Jalen Wright, I wouldn't be surprised to see him on kickoff. We saw him last year as well, and if I remember correctly, he was a terrific kick returner in high school. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him back there. But to your point, on the flip side of the unknowns in the return game, I mean, you have two of the best specialists returning in probably the entire country. Chase McGrath, maybe not a super dynamic kicker, but just kind of consistent and gets the job done. You don't have too much to fear there, although he may not have the biggest leg in the country. You know, from a certain range, he's going to be successful. And then Paxton Brooks, I mean, he is as terrific of a punter as you'll find in the SEC this year, and that's a big part of the game that people don't talk about because it's not sexy, but that can certainly win you and lose you football games.
Yeah, Paxton Brooks has been dynamic his entire career when given the opportunities, and he's got that big leg, long body, and look, Toby Wilson did a nice job handling kickoffs for him a year ago when he got banged up, but they're different if Paxton Brooks is handling kickoff duties as well. A lot more touchbacks there. And then when you look at this team overall from an athletic standpoint, they are upgrading in recruiting, upgrading in the walk-on group for guys who can end up helping them in the return game as blockers or help them in the coverage games as well. So they should be a solid special teams team. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Even last year, there were certainly some mistakes, but I thought you saw more positives than you saw negatives. Christian Charles having an impact in blocking a punt. Deshaun Rucker blocks a punt as well. So to your point about the overall ability of this football team being upgraded in recruiting, if they can have an impact last year, the new guys, surely this crop of new guys can also have a big impact. And those blocked punts were crucial in helping you stick around at Alabama, helping you jump out to a big lead at South Carolina, if I remember, or home against South Carolina, if I remember correctly. So I certainly agree with that point. You would think that with the talent they're bringing in, special teams is going to be even better under Mike Ekeler.
Well, and you know that they want to be aggressive. I think that's the final point that you take away. It truly is a third component of the game for this staff, given how aggressive they were a year ago. I mean, they took chances knowing they were going to get the ball. You take a chance against Pittsburgh to block a punt. You take a chance against Alabama to block a punt. I mean, they've been very aggressive. They were very aggressive in year one with how they handled special teams in terms of going after kicks. Now, you know, they fair caught too many for me in the back end on kickoffs, but they certainly see it as a third phase of the game for sure.
It is. I continue to say it. Nobody wants to talk about it because it's not sexy. It's special teams, but special teams wins and loses you football games. And last year, again, you had some mistakes here and there, but you had more positives that helped you win football games. And we'll see what they do this year. I think the big X factor is with Paxton Brooks and kickoffs. Too many returns for opponents last year. He's a guy that booms it through the end zone, and you don't have to worry about kickoff coverage. And that's a huge stress relief. So I certainly agree with you there.
Yeah, we'll see if he can stay healthy and can handle kickoff duties. But again, the big question on special teams, what core of athletes are they going to put back there that they trust to return kicks to make them offensive in the return game? We'll find that out in August. He's Ben McKee, Brent Hubbs, VolQuest.com.